good morning. Good morning, Said.
Good morning. How are you, Diana?
I'm doing great, thank you. Hope you're doing well as well. And hello, BNB Chain community. My name is Diana. I'm the Partner Growth Manager here at the BNB Chain. And we have a guest today. We have Said from Pyth Network. So, Said told me a couple of fun facts about himself. He was a founder of two startups before. He loves horses. And he's also on the he's in the strategic partnerships on the Jump Trade and a long-time Pyth Oracle's contributor. So, Said, welcome to the BNB chain.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, yeah, shall we begin? Could you please, tell us more a little bit Pyth Oracles and what you do and what makes, Pyth Network so special?
Yeah, totally. So Pyth is really the first Oracle or cross-chain Oracle that we've really seen in this space that supplies first-party data. Um, what I mean by first-party data is that this data is coming directly from data providers or data owners that actually participate in discovery, right? So you have TradFi institutions, you have crypto institutions, you have centralized exchanges, decentralized exchanges, all participating in some level of price discovery for these assets. And they're taking their data, which is usually locked away behind these walled gardens. Either you have to pay a lot of money to access this data, or you just have absolutely no way of accessing it. So they're unlocking that, and these institutions are directly publishing that data on chain for the first time. Um, like for example, you have a Jump Trading or a Jane Street. These are large known market makers that have really good pricing data. Each one of those is actually submitting transactions on chain and allowing anyone to use that pricing data. Um,
And I just want to, give a quick introduction to our listeners who might not be familiar what oracles are. And
okay.
I just want
Yeah, totally.
yeah,
Oracle's the simplest way to explain an oracle is that it takes data that lives off chain, so not on a blockchain, and brings it on chain. And so the people who are building decentralized applications, the people who are building on top of these blockchains, sometimes need to communicate with the non-blockchain world. And so an oracle is a type of technology that allows for the trusted and secure transfer of information from the real world to the blockchain. The blockchain is really good about making sure that the data is that it's producing or viewing on chain, secure, reliable, um, and immutable, right? But when it comes to actually accessing stuff that's happening in the real world, let's say you want to know what the price of an equity is, and it's trading on an exchange, right? Like the Nasdaq or the NYSE. Um, that's where an oracle comes in and says, "Hey, I'm going to be the trusted intermediary between the real world and the blockchain world." That's what Pyth does. So it looks at all of these off-chain sources and basically has developed a technology that is robust, resilient, accurate to bring that data from the outside world onto the blockchain so that blockchain developers and blockchain users can use it. Um,
and we're building fully decentralized future together.
yeah, and making sure that you have to actually design something in a way that if anyone wants to scrutinize it or take a look at it, it has to be open source. They have to see how Pyth is doing this. How is Pyth aggregating its price feeds? Um, all of this is what the Pyth team has spent a lot of time thinking about. How do we make sure that this is the number one most trusted Oracle? And a lot of that has to do with the design, the implementation, and the sources from where this data is coming from.
That sounds amazing. And we have like your team shared the presentation with us, so that would be amazing if you could show us some super. I know in crypto slang they call it alpha. Please.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go through it. Let's go. Well, if Tiana or Diana, you can just move the slides for me. But yeah, we can go. We can kind of look at the journey of Pyth here, all of the milestones that the team has hit. It's been incredible what they've done over the past year. They went on mainnet late August last year. By March of 2022, they were able to secure about 2 billion in TVL. So in less than a year, they grew extremely fast. Um, a lot of the V1, you went from a V1 to a V2 where they upgraded the aggregation logic. Uh, a lot of that time was spent making sure that the Oracle was extremely accurate and resilient to many different types of edge cases. And so if you take a look at um, the way that Pyth aggregates the price feeds, you can see that there's a tremendous amount of uh, reliability increases that have taken place, both from an ops perspective and from a technology perspective, making sure that even if you have a low number of sources for at any given time, that it won't have a material impact on the aggregate price. So all of these milestones are pretty incredible in kind of just a short amount of time. And you see real adoption taking place during this kind of first year, where by the end of 2022, we're getting close to it. You have over 90 or 95% of the TVL on Solana is secured by the Pyth Oracle. That's pretty incredible. It kind of shows that there's real demand for the product. Pyth is not the only Oracle on Solana. There are many Oracles on Solana. Or Chainlink is on Solana. So is Switchboard, and then a number of other smaller ones. But to kind of have such a dominant position in that big ecosystem is pretty awesome to see. Also during that time period, very early on, but right now I think a lot of people are building cross-chain. That's the number one focus, is like, how do I access these new awesome ecosystems? That wasn't the case like 6-8 months ago. No one was talking about building cross-chain. Everyone was talking about, hey, I'm going to launch a product on this ecosystem, and then that's it. I think Pyth has very early on understood the power of interoperability between blockchains, and so the Pyth team, to their credit, started engineering solutions that would work across ecosystems. And then, I think it takes us to today, where yesterday we announced, Pyth is going to be live, is live right now on BNB. So the first ecosystem that Pyth decides to go into is probably one of the most exciting and vibrant ecosystems that people are talking about today, which is the BNB ecosystem and all of the cool things that are happening. So this slide you have, kind of goes through some of the major metrics here. This is a little bit dated. I think we have over 70 data providers right now at Pyth. We have a number of large recognizable applications, from Radium to Mango to Solend, these kind of larger ones who are consuming Pyth data, covered by major media and all that. Yeah, and then if you go to the next slide, we can see kind of the publisher growth. I think we have a pretty big announcement today, so I won't front run the announcement, but I think we have a pretty big announcement today for a new data provider that I think a lot of people are going to get excited about. But yeah, and we're happy that this week as well, Binance became a data provider for Pyth. So that's pretty awesome. It's amazing data there. Pyth is excited to support a lot of the BNB tokens, and kind of empower the developers there to use a next-gen Oracle. Here we've kind of got going through the model on how Pyth is built sustainably. Essentially, the more demand there is for the product, the more adoption that the consumers kind of use these different price feeds. The more they have the ability to pay data fees, the more data fees that are paid, the more first party or awesome data sources want to join the network. And then the kind of flywheel continues, right? Where you produce a product that's valuable. People consume that product more. More people want to make that product, and then
Have an infinite loop.
yeah. So I think it's a really innovative model. It's one of the best things about Pyth is it's extremely transparent, not only in its code, but in how the network is designed. And so far, I mean, we've gotten some of the best names, I think, in both TradFi and DeFi, largely because there is some level of network effect taking place. So I'm excited to see how this team continues to grow that. Here you can see some of the logos. I mean, Jane Street, FTX, Susquehanna, CTC, IEX. You've got like TradFi exchanges.
Guys,
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, and they're all very recognizable names. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. Continued growth, month over month growth has been very, very solid on both the data provider side. And I think if you go to the next slide, you're going to see the consumer side as well. That's the data feed side. So we're continuously adding data feed products. More than 65 consumers. That number is higher now. I think this presentation is a little old, but like you get the point that it's powering real products with real TVL. With real users. Again, you kind of see the same chart here, which you kind of love to see charts like this because it just shows that the team is executing. It shows that there's demand for the product. There's a product market fit that they were able to reach. And so you just, yeah, so it's cool. You just hope that they keep executing.
Yeah, no, that's super exciting.
Yeah. And as you can see there, you reach 94% in an ecosystem. That's like, wow, that makes you kind of like the default oracle, and we want to see that across crypto. Right now, the Pyth team is working with a bunch of BNB teams. So, if you're a BNB team, you're listening out here, you're a developer, you're building something, reach out to Pyth. They've got a Discord, they've got a social, but reach out because they're working with teams right now. Volume traded is another important metric. Basically, like how much volume was traded across all of these DeFi DEXs or AMMs. And it's pretty incredible numbers, right? Like you get to a point where it's 25 billion, like that's a lot, right? So that Pyth is when we talk about an oracle, it's a critical piece of infrastructure, right? It's the source of truth of when you can be liquidated on a leveraged position or not, right? So when you have that much at risk, right? Like if you look at it in aggregate at the end of the month, you're like, wow, there's real use, there's real value, and you kind of like to see these numbers keep going up. The website visits, I love this metric because it kind of, if you're trading in DeFi, you're a DeFi power user, and you know that the platforms you're using are using the Pyth Oracle, you want to look at our website. Because the price that's shown on the Pyth side is the price that's your liquidation price. And so we started to see a massive ramp up of people paying attention to our prices. We have live pricing updating on the Pyth.network website. And so after we kind of see this growth, we ended up making a partnership with TradingView. Now TradingView will be supporting Pyth price feeds, so Pyth data. So when you go into TradingView, you can choose your source. Now Pyth is a source that you can choose, and it actually has incorporated one of the most important things about the Pyth Oracle, which is the confidence bands, which I'm sure we'll get into later. But the confidence bands are basically a conviction metric that come with the price feed. So if you ask me what's Bitcoin, what's the price of Bitcoin right now, I can say, hey, it's at 20,100. Okay. But Pyth gives you that number, and then it also gives you a like how sure is the market on this price. And so it can say 20,100 plus or minus $10. right? And that data is available for everyone to build with. So a lot of platforms, not all of them, but most platforms, they'll take into consideration the confidence interval or that band, and they'll say, hey, I'm not going to liquidate between these two bands. So even if the position is at risk at 21, 20,115, I'm not going to liquidate until it's over that plus or minus $10 band. So TradingView, made a partnership with Pyth. They're gonna show the Pyth data, but they're also going to show the confidence bands as well because they think that the DeFi users are going to be really interested to see that. So not only can you see this data on Pyth.network, but you can also relatively soon, hopefully, you'll be able to see it on TradingView itself.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
TradingView, it's I've been using that for a while as well.
Yeah, it's exciting. Yeah.
Well-known ticker to, I guess, for everyone who is in our industry.
Yep.
And yeah, thank you so much for guiding us through Pyth Network. You guys have built actually a very exciting project. And why don't we go through a couple of questions to know more about what you guys have? So I have prepared the list. And first of all, let's go to the basics. Could you please explain the difference between the first and third party data and why is that important for our users?
Yeah, so first party data, it means that you actually own the data. You're not just like copying the data from a public resource, right? So you're not just tapping into an API, or maybe you're looking at like CoinGecko or something like that, right? That pricing is somewhat stale, and most traders don't want to be using that price. And you definitely don't want to be using that price for something as important as powering a DeFi protocol, right? That's providing margin or leverage or any kind of product like that. And so a third-party data source would be someone who is looking at a aggregator like CoinGecko, or somebody who has a lot of middlemen or steps in between when the data is actually created and when the data reaches on chain. So when we say first-party data source, we basically say that like Binance is publishing themselves directly on chain. Jump Trading is publishing their pricing, the pricing that they're seeing directly on chain. It's not anyone in between who's taking that price, doing something with it. They're all individually submitting the price on chain. And then the Pyth program, which is on chain as well, takes all of those price updates and aggregates it into one feed extremely fast, right? As fast as 400 milliseconds. So you can have some pretty accurate pricing. But that's the main difference, that there's nobody else who's taking the data from another source and then handing it over to the blockchain. There's also no off-chain computation happening. It's all on-chain. You can see it. Even if you go to Pyth.network and you click on the BTC feed, if you scroll down, you're going to see the public keys for each data provider. So you see all of the components that go into that price that the aggregate price, the price that you see that's reported by Pyth. You can see all of the components right there. Then you can go into the GitHub. You can recreate how the price is aggregated relatively easily. There's nothing shrouded in mystery. It's kind of out there for everyone to see, which we thought is extremely important because, like I said in the beginning, an oracle needs to be transparent so that it can win people's trust and understand that it is doing and behaving in the right way.
Well, that's very exciting. And you answered my second question, basically, about the difference that it brings, for the final output. So we just go, to a few more questions. And could you please further explain how DeFi applications use Pyth? And do they have to pay a fee to Pyth to access the data? What's the model behind?
So the model is essentially, you can always view the data. It's not a problem. Obviously you can go to Pyth.network. You can view the data. Most consumers, so most developers who are using the Pyth feed likely can basically, it's kind of like a request for update model, right? So it doesn't mean that everyone has to request to update. If somebody has already requested to update, they don't have to pay. But if you're the first person and you're saying, "Hey, I want to update this price right now because I needed to use it," the only fee that you really have to pay is probably the gas fee. Today, there's no like extra exorbitant like subscription fee. There's no like um, there's none of those types of costs. It's really just, hey, you're gonna take the price that's living on the wormhole network, that's been reported on the wormhole network, and you're just saying, hey, I want to publish it on chain. So if I want to publish it on BNB, I'm doing that transaction. On BNB it has very low gas. I think that's why builders love kind of coming to that ecosystem and building products there, is that it's fast and the gas costs aren't very cheap. So yeah, that's basically the model that developers can use today. Um,
Well, that brings us to the next question then. If the data access is being free, how do the network, how does the network incentivize publishers to contribute data to Pyth? What makes them trustworthy to not publish like wrong data?
um, so So the great thing about the white paper, and I would definitely encourage everyone who's listening to actually read the Pyth Network white paper. That team's worked really hard on it. When they pushed it out, they spent a lot of time making sure that it was easy for everyone to understand, while like communicating some pretty obviously technical concepts. But it's actually a really nice read. It gives you a good understanding of how oracles work. It also gives you a really good understanding of how the Pyth network, and I mean network in the true sense, right, where it's a bunch of different participants come together and work together and benefit from contributing to the network. Um, and then just to get into a few of the specifics here, you have different types of network participants. You can think of them as like groups. You can think of them as like um, types of participants, but one of them is the publishers. The other one is the consumers. And then the third one is the delegators, which is just like people like you and me, Diana, who want to be involved, but maybe we don't have, special first party data, and maybe we don't have a DeFi protocol, right? So I think those are the three big ones. There's also a fourth category as well, which is our infrastructure providers, right? So Pyth has a bunch of infrastructure providers, and they're part of the network as well, kind of supporting the data publishers in a way and the consumers in a way. But I'll focus on your question, which is mainly like the publishers and the consumers, and how does this work? So essentially, the way it's architected in the white paper is that data publishers are going to be required to stake, right? They're going to be required to stake in order for them to publish prices to Pyth. And as a reward for publishing and as publishing the prices, they're going to get some form of reward back. It can be a token reward. It can be whatever is outlined in the paper and whatever the community agrees upon, right? But the main requirement is that they will be required to put some skin in the game to make sure that there is a punishment if their data is bad, right? Now, that reward is going to be somewhat proportional to the stake that they have staked. So the more stake, the more skin in the game they have, the more they have the ability to get in rewards, right? Now, in the white paper, you can kind of go through how the rewards come in. Part of that is the tokenomics that are laid out in the white paper, where there is a pretty sizable portion allocated for these types of on-chain rewards. Part of that is going to be for data fees that are paid by the consumers, and then also part of that is potentially just the second and third and fourth order effects of being part of crypto and being part of the reward. That a lot of these firms are coming to us because they have never done anything in crypto and they want to get involved with something that they understand. They understand the importance of an oracle. They definitely understand the importance of data, and they see this as a great first step to get into this industry in a very real way. So I would encourage anyone who wants to understand a little bit more about the different ways that these groups, these parts of the network interact with each other, and what are the economic incentives between them, read the white paper. Like I said, it isn't like, it's not 100 pages. We tried to make it as reasonable as possible, right? We can communicate pretty complex things in a very simple way in less than 150 pages. So it's pretty short actually. I think it's like 15 or 18 pages, but if you want to kind of go through it and understand how the network and the Oracle work, it's one of my favorite ones that I've read, I think.
Thank you for thinking about us readers who are going to read the white paper.
Yeah. Exactly. We're like, we want people to actually understand because
Yeah,
it makes, yeah.
because
So
sometimes in our industry, like these white papers are just like
yeah,
too like
it's almost like they don't want you to understand. Like it's on purpose. They're like, I don't want you to understand what we're doing.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah. I'm always happy to see when we are taken care of. And I've used to joke in the past, like the data is basically the new commodity. So we'll see how in the industry in the long term that plays out.
yeah,
And I have a few more questions still.
yeah. Go
And
on.
apart from attracting more publishers, why should DeFi applications voluntarily pay data fees to the publishers? Is there something like behind it?
So I think the mechanism is kind of interesting. It's something that I've talked to the Pyth team a lot about, just trying to understand myself. Um, I think it largely centers around in the event that the Oracle fails, what they wanted to do is they wanted to make the Oracle anti-fragile. And so part of doing that is saying that like you can't, you shouldn't tell people that something is never going to fail, right? But what you should have is a mechanism for making people happy even if it does fail, right? Like giving them some protection when it does fail. Um, I think those are the better systems because saying that something is never going to break or that something is never going to happen in the future is usually like the ego speaking and hubris, and it doesn't mean it's the soundest system designed for a system. So I think the motivation for them to incorporate what they're calling data fees is basically saying that look, we're going to create a mechanism that allows you to say, hey, I need my users to be safe, right? So I have $1 million worth of exposure that in the case that anyone is wrongfully liquidated, that I can pay these data fees. I can go through the entire process and I can get something back and pay my users, right? So it's a type of protection, um,
Like,
as I understand it, as it's described in the white paper, right? Essentially, the way that, actually one of the most interesting parts about it is that it actually has like this on-chain jury system that they've outlined, and they've partnered with another protocol to do it. It's called Human Protocol. So
mhm.
Human Protocol, it is like this like mechanical Turk on blockchain kind of protocol. If you guys haven't seen it, check it out. It basically has a lot of people participating in all of these like small tasks, and they get rewarded for doing it. They get like a couple of cents. They have actually like 200 million users according to their website. And I've actually seen their product on a lot of things, even here in the US. It's kind of crazy. Like they have this thing called H CAPTCHA,
Mhm.
which I've actually like seen. Like my friend got a parking ticket, and in order for him to pay the parking ticket, he had to use H CAPTCHA, and that's Human Protocol's like, uh, you know, um, thing to make sure that you're not a bot, right?
Mhm.
And behind it, they have like 200 million users that are going there and winning these like tiny little like doing these little tiny tasks, right? So the Pyth Network partnered with them because they saw kind of like that they've had some success and kind of doing these things. And the main reason they partnered with them is that they wanted to have a governance mechanism so that someone can come in and say, hey, I think that the price reported at this time was wrong. Um, and so if that ever happens, they've designed a mechanism where you can submit as a user, or as let's say you're a developer of a DeFi protocol, you say, I think the price here is wrong, and I want to prove it. So you submit that, then um, a challenge goes to human protocol. They talk to their 100, 200 million users. They say, hey, we need 10,000 people to go look on Binance. What was the price at this time? Does the price match uh, Pyth's price? They all kind of submit independently. You can't guess who they're going to choose. It's just random. It could be a high number. It could be 10,000 people. It could be a pretty big random selection of the population, right? They can all submit their feedback. And then human protocol can say, hey, here's what people found. Here's the evidence associated with it. We think that the user was correct, or we think that the user was incorrect. After that, the evidence is produced. Then the Pyth network, all of the community and network decides to vote on whether the information that was reported by human protocol was correct. If it was, then the user gets, not just the user, but everyone who paid data fees gets paid out that, and the data providers are slashed, and that money is also paid out to the data consumers. And I hope I'm doing a good job explaining it, because I know it has multiple pieces, but it really is supposed to be like this community-oriented, governance-first type of model. And like I said at the beginning, the main purpose here is not to say that something will never fail, but to say if it ever does, that there is an avenue, there's a path for you to take to get some sort of justice for it, right? And
No,
we think that's sustainable, right? Because as these protocols in this space get more and more decentralized, you need things like this. You need something you need something like this to be able to say, hey, this is something that we want to make sure that is available from from a community, from a network standpoint. So
yeah, we want to protect our builders, and we want to protect the DeFi protocols built on the BNB chain, because for us it's super important to give all the tools and all the everything that
yeah,
can make experience on the BNB chain
it's
great.
yeah. It's super important to note that the space is still very early. Like what I was just describing was essentially like one of the first um, like on-chain jury systems, right? Like this isn't something that's prevalent. Like that's why I'm like I admire the Pyth team a lot, because they actually do kind of take these steps in terms of innovations. They're not scared to say, hey, we're going to be one of the first people. Like there's definitely not 100 people before us who have done something like this. So like they're one of the first people that want to think critically and kind of launch these things. And hey, if it works, if people find value in it, then it's going to be something that the industry adopts. And so like I generally like to you know work with teams like that.
That's amazing. And just a quick question. Do you have a timeline for all the mechanics with the Amazon Turk that you have just explained? This quorum, the
The
voting.
human protocol, yeah. So I think I don't have a timeline on that one yet. I would imagine sometime in 2023 that will be tested and live. Um, no guarantee, but yeah, I think sometime in this new year, that's going to be live and tested, and we'll probably um, you know be able to let the consumers know pretty soon.
Okay, cool. And my favorite question: why did you choose the BNB chain as the first chain to support?
I think it largely has to do with a lot of the growth that the BNB chain has like evolved so much over the last like year and a half, and I think developers are starting to take notice. The early developers that kind of knew it when it was before it was BNB chain, when it was BSC chain, they have an idea, but now you've kind of seen it evolve into something where it is attracting projects. It has a phenomenal user base. If you look at like Trust Wallet, if you look at the activity there, there are some really serious users on that chain, and so I think again, I think the way that you make these decisions is you look at the vibrancy of the developer ecosystem, but also of like the users that are going to want to use these products. Then you look at the technology trade-offs in terms of, hey, there were other EVM compatible chains we could have launched on first. but you kind of see like, hey, that this meets kind of a sweet spot, and this is what's attracting the users to this chain, right? And so, and then I think the second most important reason is that a lot of the people on the were getting contacted on the Pyth team saying, "Hey, I'm building on BNB. When are you going to be live? Hey, I really want these specific things that you guys are doing. Hey, I really like how you guys are doing the confidence intervals. We don't have anything like this on BNB from the oracles there." So we were getting a lot of requests from the ecosystem, and so we knew that uh, when we launched, we would be able to work with already great protocols, like Venus, for example, like the top TVL project on BNB, but also many others, right? And so I think that probably had a lot to do with their decision to go to a BNB chain first.
Yeah, and from my side, I just want to mention that we love to support the builders. We do have
Mhm.
an extensive roadmap, product map, so guys, definitely check it out. And that brings me to your next question. Will the data be available on the BNB sidechains?
Yes, yes, yeah. That was actually one of the first things I think they were building for, was actually specifically for the side chains. It's an exciting project, so
That,
support. Yeah.
that's great to hear.
Yep. Yep.
And we're getting close to the time. So my last question would be, what BNB or like what type of applications would you like to see be powered by Pyth, and why would this app benefit from using Pyth?
I would love to see kind of all of the borrow lending protocols, all of the AMMs, especially Oracle AMMs that will require an Oracle to use Pyth, because I think their users would be really happy to kind of understand um, not only how the Oracle affects the product, but also the speed at which the Oracle updates, and the accuracy at which it updates is pretty awesome. So I would love to see those two categories of builders reach out. We have a lot of experience working with teams that are doing that. Um, so not only obviously does the Pyth team understand oracles, but they understand those types of protocols pretty well.
Thank you so much for your answers. That's definitely a very interesting conversation. And we do have like some viewers, hopefully. Do you guys have any questions to Said? If so, please post in the comments. I'm sure Said will be happy to answer some of them if there are any.
Totally.
If not, um, if not, then we can, sum it up that Pyth is a new oracle and it's one of the fastest growing oracles. And we're excited to see you guys on the BNB chain. And it's great to see how you bring TradeFi and crypto together. And, I'm very excited to move forward with our partnership.
We're super excited as well.
Would you
Super
like
excited.
to wrap it up?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I just want to say that I'm excited to actually get uh, more involved with the BNB ecosystem. Personally, you can reach out to me on Twitter if you'd like to get in contact with the Pyth team. Um, they're extremely active on Twitter, Discord. Um, uh, you know, ping them on the various channels. They're extremely responsive. We've got a lot of people who are active both on the developer side and on the community side, in the Discord. So feel free to go to Pyth.network. You can find all of our links there to our docs if you're trying to build. You can find all of our community links, whether you're trying to join or follow us on any of the socials. And then if me personally, I'm Shadowfax on Twitter, so feel free to DM me. I'm really keen to get more involved in the BNB ecosystem. I've been talking to a lot of the projects. We've been working really closely with Venus and some of the projects in the ecosystem. So I'd like to expand that and um, kind of be a part of the journey. So I'm excited.
Thank you. There are a few questions like PS, when will you guys launch a token? Is Pyth open sourced and why say it is so cool? Which one would you like to answer?
So the first one, I think I'll leave that to the Pyth team. They're the only ones who can answer it, not me. I wish. I asked them the same question as well. And for the others, well, I forgot the second one. The third one threw me off.
So I think you mentioned earlier that Pyth is open source, so I can answer that.
Oh yeah, totally open source. Again, go to pyth.network, go to the developer tab. You'll have all the links to our docs. We have a Git book that goes through kind of, it has really nice summaries and explanations, and example code as well. And then obviously you'll get the GitHub links there as well. So you can take a look at the code.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone who was watching. Thank you, Said, for coming and joining us on this stream. And should I say like GM in which part of the world you guys are in? And have a wonderful day.